Sienna, a journalist from a local magazine, asked for an interview. A scout from a bigger boutique gave me her card. When I got back to my car that night, I sat in silence for a long time. I was still sleeping in my Honda, still broke, still alone. But I was also a designer whose work had just been featured in a real runway show. I cried, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was from something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. I posted a photo of myself backstage with a caption, "Still here, still fighting, still creating." It got 20,000 likes. The comments were full of strangers cheering me on. I read every single one. The magazine feature changed everything. Local designer rises from homelessness to create stunning collection, ran in Brooklyn-style magazine with photos of my work and a brief interview. Overnight, my followers doubled. Orders flooded in. Bigger boutiques reached out. But I was still sleeping in my car, still using Mr. Chen's back room, still showering at the gym. Eli noticed I was falling apart. "You need rest," he said one night, finding me asleep at the sewing machine at 4 a.m. "I need to keep working," I said, jolting awake. "If I stop, I'll lose this momentum. If you don't stop, you'll collapse." He was right, but I couldn't admit it. I was terrified that if I slowed down, everything would disappear. That I'd wake up and realize it was all a dream. That I'd end up back in my parents' house, defeated, proving them right. So I pushed harder. I worked longer. I ignored my body's warnings until one day, I fainted in the fabric store. I woke up in Eli's apartment on his couch. "You're staying here," he said firmly. No arguments. I started to protest, but he cut me off. "You can't build an empire from a parking lot, Sienna. Let someone help you." So I did. For the first time in 7 months, I slept in a real bed. And I let myself believe I deserved it. 1 year after my parents threw me out, my face appeared on a billboard in Times Square. It wasn't huge, just part of a rotating ad for New York Fashion Week featuring emerging designers. But there I was, 10 feet tall, my name in lights. Eli called me, screaming, "Turn on the TV. Channel 7. I did. A morning show was featuring local designers to watch. My face filled the screen. The host said my name, talked about my story, showed my designs. My phone started buzzing nonstop. Congratulations messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. Press requests. Interview offers. And then, finally, after 12 months of silence, my mother called. I stared at her name on my screen. My hand trembled. I almost didn't answer. But I did. "Hello," I said, my voice careful. "Sienna." Her voice was warm, familiar, like nothing had happened. "We saw you on television. Your father and I are so proud of you. We always knew you had it in you." I felt like I'd been punched. "Proud," I repeated slowly. "It's wonderful," she continued, like I'd agreed. "We'd love for you to come home. We can celebrate properly. Family is family, darling. It's time to put this behind us." I hung up without saying another word. Eli found me sitting on the floor, staring at the wall. "They called," I said. He didn't need to ask who. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I just hung up." "Good," he said, sitting beside me. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need their approval anymore. I had built this without them. I spent the next week thinking about that phone call. How my mother had said family is family like it was a magic phrase that erased everything. How she'd said, "We're so proud," without acknowledging the 12 months of silence. How she'd said, "We always knew you had it in you," when she'd literally called me a failure. I remembered something then. The night they kicked me out, I'd recorded our conversation on my phone. I'd been so hurt, so confused, that I'd hit record, thinking maybe I could listen to it later and understand what had happened. I'd never listened to it. Never had the courage. But now I opened my old phone files and found it. The audio was 43 minutes long. I pressed play. My father's voice came through first, cold and harsh. "You're throwing away everything we gave you." My mother. "You want to sew clothes? You think we raised a tailor?" Then my own voice, young and desperate. "I just want to follow my dream." My father. Your dream is worthless. You're dead to us. I listened to the whole thing, tears streaming down my face. Every cruel word, every insult, every moment they'd crushed me. And then I made a decision. I uploaded a 10-second clip, the worst part, to my social media anonymously. Just audio over a black screen with a caption. This is what support sounds like. No names. No explanation. Just the truth. The internet exploded. The clip went viral immediately. 5 million views in 2 days. People were outraged. The comments were full of strangers defending me, sharing their own stories of family rejection, calling out the cruelty in those voices. News sites picked it up. Anonymous designer shares heartbreaking audio of family rejection. Think pieces were written about conditional love and parental expectations. Some people figured out it was me. My follower count skyrocketed. Brands reached out for collaborations. And then my phone started buzzing with messages from my family. My cousin Jeremy, please take the video down. Aunt Cynthia is getting death threats. My uncle Frank, this is cruel, Sienna. You're airing private family business. My Aunt Diane, people recognize the voices. Your parents are being harassed. And finally, my mother. You're ruining our lives. Take it down now. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. So did you. I didn't take it down. The audio stayed up. The truth stayed public. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for defending myself. The backlash from my family got worse. My mother's church friends turned on her. My father got cold-shouldered at his country club. People who'd known them for decades suddenly saw them differently. Some relatives tried to defend them. Every family has problems. She shouldn't air this publicly. She's being vindictive. They made a mistake, but they're her parents. This is just cruel. She's successful now. She should be the bigger person. But others sided with me. Distant cousins I barely knew reached out to share their own stories of being rejected for following their dreams. Friends from high school messaged to say they always knew my parents were too controlling. The narrative shifted. I wasn't the ungrateful daughter anymore. I was the survivor. My Aunt Diane called me crying. They're threatening to sue you, she warned. For what? I asked calmly. Defamation? It's their own words. I have the full recording. I have witnesses to what they did. Let them try. She was quiet. Then, I'm sorry I didn't defend you that night. Thank you, I said. But it's too late for apologies. I meant it. Some things can't be fixed with sorry. Some wounds don't heal just because time passes. They'd had 12 months to reach out. They'd waited until I was successful. That told me everything I needed to know. A month after the audio went viral, I received an email that changed everything, an invitation to give a talk at a major conference about redefining family and following your dreams. It was one of the biggest stages in the creative industry. Thousands of people would attend. It would be live-streamed. I had 3 weeks to write a speech. I sat with my laptop open for hours, cursor blinking, not sure where to start. Eli sat beside me. What do you want to say? He asked. The truth, I said. But I don't want to just trash my parents. I want to say something that matters. Then say that, he encouraged. Say what you needed to hear when you were sleeping in your car. So I wrote. I wrote about the night they threw me out, about living in my car, about the hunger and fear and shame. But I also wrote about the strangers who helped me. Mr. Chun who gave me access to his shop, the customers who tipped extra, the people who believed in me when my own family didn't. I wrote about how family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up. And I ended with this line. Forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. Love doesn't mean access. You can honor your journey without inviting your abusers to the destination. Reading it back made me cry. But they were good tears. The night of the talk, I stood backstage, hands shaking. The auditorium held 3,000 people. Another 50,000 were watching online. Eli squeezed my hand. You've got this, he said. I walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding. I couldn't see faces, just a sea of darkness beyond the spotlight. I took a breath and began. My name is Sienna, and I'm 20 years old. A year ago, my parents threw me out of their house for wanting to be a fashion designer instead of a doctor. They told me I was dead to them. They cut off my money, blocked my number, and told everyone who'd listen that I was a failure. The room was silent. For 12 months, I slept in my car. I ate crackers for dinner. I cried myself to sleep more times than I can count. But I also kept creating. And slowly, painfully, I built a life without them. I told my story. Every hard part. Every moment of doubt. Every small victory. When I got to the part about my mother calling after she saw me on TV, the audience gasped. She said family is family like it was a magic spell that could erase what she'd done, I said. But family isn't a title you get to claim only when it benefits you. Family is action. Family is showing up. And my parents didn't show up until I no longer needed them. The applause was deafening. The talk went more viral than I ever expected. Clips spread across every platform. News outlets covered it. Celebrities shared it. Within a week, it had been viewed 20 million times. I became the voice for every person who'd been betrayed by family for daring to dream differently. My brand exploded. Major retailers reached out. I was invited to show at Real Fashion Week. Everything I'd worked for was finally happening. But the personal cost was real. My parents were destroyed socially. My mother lost her position on her church committee. My father's business partners distanced themselves. People stopped pretending they were a good family. I felt conflicted about that. Not guilty. They'd earned their consequences. But sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that they'd chosen pride over love. Sad that I'd lost my family even as I was gaining everything else. Eli noticed. "You okay?" he asked one night. "I'm successful and homeless at the same time," I said. "Like, I have money now, but no family. I'm living my dream, but I'm so lonely." "You're not homeless," he said gently. "You have me. You have Mr. Chin. You have 50,000 people online who love you. That's not nothing." He was right. But it still hurt. 2 months after my talk went viral, my parents showed up at my studio unannounced. I'd finally rented a real workspace, a small but bright room in Brooklyn where I could design and produce my pieces. I was pinning fabric to a dress form when I heard the door open. I turned around and there they were. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. My father looked tired. Neither looked like the powerful people who'd throw me out. "Sienna," my mother said. Her voice cracked. "We need to talk." I set down my pins carefully. "About what?" "We were wrong," my father said. The words sounded painful. "We didn't know how to support you. We were scared. We thought we were protecting you from failure, but we were just pushing you away." My mother stepped forward. "We've been watching everything you've done. We're so proud of you. We want to be part of your life again." I looked at them for a long moment. I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times. In some versions, I yelled. In others, I cried. In others, I forgave them immediately. But standing there, looking at the people who'd given me life but also nearly destroyed it, I felt something unexpected. Nothing. Not anger. Not love. Just nothing. "I appreciate you coming here," I said slowly. "But I've already built a life without you. I had to. You made sure of that." "But we're your parents," my mother said desperately. Family is action," I interrupted, echoing my own speech. "And you didn't act like family when it mattered." I walked to the door and held it open. "I'm not going backward," I said. "I'm not angry anymore. But I'm also not available. You wanted me out of your life. You got your wish. I'm just successful on my own terms now." They left. I watched them walk away, and I didn't cry. I just closed the door and got back to work. 6 months later, I launched the Unmade Foundation. It was a nonprofit designed to support young creatives who'd been abandoned by their families for following their dreams. We provided grants, mentorship, and resources. We partnered with organizations to offer housing assistance. We created a community where people could share their stories without shame. The name came from my first angry collection, but it meant something different now. Unmade as in, You don't have to be the person your family made you. You can unmake those expectations and rebuild yourself. The foundation's first event was a fashion show featuring designs from 10 young artists who'd been kicked out of their homes. Every piece told a story. Every model was someone who'd survived rejection. The room was full of press, donors, and supporters. But the most important people there were the kids themselves, seeing their work celebrated. I gave a short speech before the show started. "This isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about making sure no one has to sleep in their car to prove they deserve to dream. It's about creating the family we needed when we needed it most." The show was beautiful, raw and honest, and full of hope. And when I walked backstage afterward, I saw Mr. Chun, Eli, and dozens of strangers who'd become my real family. I realized something important. My parents had tried to break me, but they'd actually freed me. They'd forced me to find out who I was without their approval. And that person was stronger than anyone they could have raised. The final runway show of my first official Fashion Week collection was called Unmade, A Journey Home. Every piece represented a stage of my story. The opening look was a dress made from fabric scraps, representing my early days digging through dumpsters. The middle pieces were sharper, bolder, representing my growth. And the final look was a stunning white gown with hand-embroidered flowers crawling up from the hem to the shoulders, representing blooming despite concrete. I walked the runway myself for the closing, not as a model, but as the designer taking her bow. The audience stood and applauded. Cameras flashed. People cried. In the front row, I saw Eli, Mr. Chin, Carmen from the boutique, and dozens of kids from my foundation. My real family. Backstage, a journalist asked, "Do you wish your parents could see this?" I thought about it honestly. A year ago, yes. I wanted them to see what they'd missed. I wanted them to regret what they'd done. But now? No. This moment is mine. I earned it without them. And that makes it mean more, not less. That night, I posted one final message on social media. They left me to starve. I turned that hunger into fire. To everyone who's been told their dream is worthless, keep going. The people who can't see your value don't deserve to share your victory. It was viewed 30 million times. But the number didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I'd survived. I'd built something beautiful from nothing. And I'd done it entirely on my own terms. Today, I'm 21 years old. I run a successful fashion brand, lead a foundation, and live in a real apartment with furniture I bought myself. I haven't spoken to my parents in months. They've tried reaching out a few times, but I don't respond. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday I'll have the emotional capacity to have a real conversation about what happened. But right now, I'm focused on building, not repairing. Some people think I'm cruel for cutting them off completely. They say everyone deserves a second chance, that family is forever, that forgiveness is strength. But those people didn't sleep in their car. They didn't get thrown out for daring to have a dream. They don't understand that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're related by blood. My life isn't perfect. I still have nightmares sometimes about being homeless again. I still check my bank account obsessively, terrified the money will disappear. I still struggle to accept help because I'm so used to doing everything alone. But I'm healing. Slowly. Surrounded by people who chose to love me, not people who felt obligated to. Last week, a girl from my foundation sent me a message. "Thank you for showing me it's possible. My parents kicked me out last month for being gay. I thought my life was over, but seeing your story gave me hope." That message reminded me why I share my story, even the painful parts. Not for revenge, not for sympathy, but because somewhere out there is a scared kid sleeping in their car, wondering if their dream is worth the cost. And I want them to know, yes, it is. It absolutely is. They cut me off for chasing my dream. Now I get to decide what my dream becomes. And it's more beautiful than they could have ever imagined.